This is real, and for once, truth is scarier than fiction. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, the show that either ruins your childhood or makes you fear for your life. Sometimes we do both at the same time, and those episodes are the special ones. Sure, sometimes we cover fun things like quantum physics or poop jokes, but lately the show's been in a bit of a blue period. Blame it on the winter, I suppose, but we've gone to some pretty dark places recently. Nearly sentient killer robots, death rods from outer space, cataclysmic planetary events, you know, the usual stuff, par for the course. Falling in line with that pattern, today we're talking about sound, a topic which, at first, seems harmless enough. You know, it's pretty important to what we do every day. It's also the thing that's allowing you to listen to me right now, but it can also be dangerous. Dangerous enough to be a weapon. Dangerous enough to do some real damage. Dangerous enough to blow your skull apart. So crank those speakers up to 11. As we prepare to talk about a killer that's both silent and deadly. And not a fart. So way back in May of 2011, the fourth episode of this series was dedicated to the real-life equivalents of Mortal Kombat fatalities. Pretty intense stuff, being frozen to death, having your heart ripped out, getting poisoned by reptiles, kisses from reptiles. But there was one fatality that I really wanted to cover that I just didn't have time for, and that was smoke blowing up the planet using chest bombs, which I did 7 episodes later. But there was another fatality that I just wanted to... Okay, it was Sindel blowing up a head with the power of sound. Is that possible? You know, I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. It is. And not only is it possible, it can happen to you at practically any moment without you realizing what's going on. But in order to understand that scary little thought, we have to review the basics of sound first. So let's start at square one. What is sound? How can something invisible possibly cause someone's head to pop like a 16-year-old's pimple? Well, sound is a bunch of pressure waves, vibrations that travel through air, water, or something else. I snap my fingers, and I cause the air around my hand to vibrate, like ripples in a pond, with those ripples eventually reaching my ear, allowing me to hear the sound of the snap. That's why in the vacuum of space, no one can hear you scream. Literally, there is nothing there to vibrate and thus carry a scream sound. Or gunshot sound, ghost cod. You hear me? I'm looking at you. Ugh, for as cool as these scenes are, Isaac Newton just face-palmed all over this game. Since sound is a pressure wave, it most often gets represented like this. Now, there are 4 different numbers that you can use to describe a sound wave. Wavelength, period, amplitude, and frequency, but the one that's going to help us the most in popping ahead right now is frequency, which measures how many vibrations or ripples there are per second. Say I pluck a string, pluck it good and hard, but only after treating it well and showing it a good time first. If my pluck starts in this position, the number of times the string reaches that position again in a second can be said to be its frequency. This speed, in turn, affects the pitch of the sound. More vibrations per second produces a higher pitch, and fewer means a lower one. This number of cycle per second is measured in hertz. Hertz, like the rental car or the donut. Hertz, donut. Now, as anyone who's ever used a dog whistle knows, the human ear can't hear all frequencies of sound. The sound that's leaving the whistle and driving the dog crazy sounds like nothing to you. The frequency is too high for the human ear to process. But there are also sounds that are too low for human hearing. In general, you can hear frequencies between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. Anything with a frequency below that low 20 hertz threshold is called infrasound. And though we might not be able to hear it, it can certainly affect us in some pretty bizarre and disturbing ways. Now I have to ask, do you trust me? Because I'm about to play you a very brief example of infrasound. Now don't worry, you'll be fine. Or at least you should be. Here it is. Did you hear that? Or rather, did you feel that? Some of you probably didn't, and that's because many headphones and speakers can't produce that low of hertz. It's called frequency response, the range of possible frequencies a set of speakers or headphones can produce. So my apologies, CodFan27365, your Turtle Beach Ear Force X12s ain't gonna cut it. To demonstrate how bizarre this is, for me, my headphones can produce the sound, but my speakers can't. That said, for those of you who could hear it, it probably didn't sound like all that much, but chances are, you probably also felt it. The low frequency of infrasonic sound means it has a longer wavelength, which makes it easier to penetrate your body and shake things up. The weird part about this is almost any part of your body, based on its volume and makeup, will vibrate at specific frequencies. This is what's known as its resonant frequency, the tone at which an object, or in this case body part, vibrates the most. Take for instance your eye. It's been documented that when placed in a room with a fan resonating at around 19 hertz, almost the exact resonant frequency of the human eye, test subjects start to see ghostly gray shapes floating in front of them. When the fan's removed, the shapes disappear. Or another example, at Brown University there used to be the elevator to hell, a seemingly innocent elevator with a bent fan that produced undetectable infrasound. Going as little as 2 floors ended up with the rider feeling nauseous. All of this forms the basis of what's known as vibroacoustic syndrome, the effect of infrasonic output not on your hearing, but on the various fluid-filled parts of your body. And you know what else is a fluid-filled part of the body? The head. All objects have limits to how much they can stretch when subjected to force, so if you find the right frequency and then put enough power behind that vibration, they'll stretch and stretch until they can't stretch no more, resulting in, well,
fatality.
For sound, this comes down to a matter of decibels, the measure of a sound's loudness. For example, a quiet garden, about 30 decibels. A chainsaw, 110. iPod at max volume, 115. Your cry of anguish when you were on the last boss and he was like 1 hit away and he hits you with that unfair attack that you just can't dodge, damn it! 165 decibels. Actually, that's not true. That's more along the lines of firing a shotgun next to your ear, but still it feels that way. Anything above 125 is going to cause you pain and potential hearing loss, but because of the frequency of all of these sounds, we know that they're loud and that they hurt and that we should probably avoid them. The scary thing about infrasound, though, is that since we don't hear these frequencies very well, we're often unaware of exactly how loud they are. Let me spell that out for you. You could be hearing destructive levels of infrasound without actually hearing it. All this high-pitched screeching Sindel is doing? Yeah, totally unnecessary. What you would be feeling is just this bizarre pressure coming from somewhere you wouldn't even know. Specifically, this is what you would experience. At 130 decibels, the inner ear would start undergoing distortions that'll affect your ability to understand speech. At about 150 decibels, you're gonna start complaining about nausea and whole body vibrations. By the time you're at 166, you'll start noticing problems breathing as the low frequency pulses start impacting your lungs, reaching a critical point at about 177 dB when infrasound from 0.5 to 8 hertz can actually force you to breathe against your will. That's right, sound would literally be controlling your body at that point. So really, we could kill you simply by stopping your breathing with the equivalent of a prolonged silent shotgun blast. But if we really wanted to be a showboat about it and pop your head like a firework, or that scene from Scanners, we'd have to crank the dBs up to something substantial, around 240, since the head is so well insulated. And that sounds like a lot. It is, absolutely. But as loyal theorists know, this is the part of the show that gets you to question your decision to leave your house every day, so it must not be that much. To which I say, behold LRAD, the long-range acoustic device, able to focus sound into a concentrated beam and project it loud and clear for over 2 miles. 2 miles! That's more than I can run. ever. This thing is like a sound launcher. So powerful, one of its key selling features is being able to equip it into a helicopter, shoot it at the ground, and still make people cringe to Hansen's mbop. And that's no joke. You literally can hook up your iPod and blast anything you want out of it, and that includes infrasonic tones. Add that to this fact. Bullhorns operate at 90 decibels. This guy can reach 162 without breaking a sweat. Let me remind you, that number is well over the limit of causing prolonged hearing damage, and only 4 shy of causing those breathing problems I mentioned earlier. Turn off this safety switch on the back here, and who knows how powerful this thing can become. I actually couldn't find any documentation that says. This bad boy's been used against protesters and pirates. Not that type of pirate. Yeah, that's more like it. Captain Phillips would have been a much shorter movie with some LRAD. But in all seriousness, this thing can save lives, deterring enemies without needing to fire a bullet. In fact, it's been used as an effective defense mechanism against enemy soldiers, which is great. But then you have it being used against peaceful protesters trying to exercise their rights to free speech. Not so good. And if it really got into the wrong hands, well, you'd have yourself a silent helicopter-mounted headburster with unlimited ammo, just waiting for someone to crank up the volume. So yes, Sindel's fatality here is not only possible, but a real thing. A real scary thing. A silent, long-distance killer, much scarier than a dead-eyed Bride of Frankenstein ripoff. So thanks for listening. At least this time you had a choice. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the Super Amazing End Card Tournament, where last time you overwhelmingly said N-O to C-O-D. Today we're playing a game of Would You Rather with some of my favorite Mortal Kombat fatalities. So, would you rather get your leg ripped off and then beaten to death with it, or get punched where the sun don't shine only to have your bottom half explode and your top half fall to the ground? They're both so appealing. Click on one to choose, but before you do, make sure you give a good old ball punch Johnny Cage style to the subscribe button. So that's about it. Maybe next time we'll do something happier that doesn't involve death. That'd be great. I'd like that. Maybe I'll do that. You'll just have to tune in and see.